today's training, guys, what prompted us to do this training today was Jason and I, we meet weekly and just kind of look at the business and analyze how the team's doing, what are some areas that we can improve on or train on. And one of the key things that we're noticing is we're meeting with a lot of buyers, and some of our agents are having trouble moving them to the second date. We might meet them off of Zillow, we get a touring agreement signed, or some of us are having trouble even getting the touring agreement signed. But let's say we make it that far and we get to the touring agreement, we meet them at the property. Sometimes we're having trouble getting them to sign a formal buyer broker agreement or move to the next step. So that right there, just that particular part of it is crucial to having long-term success with buyers, right? We need to know how to get in front of buyers, demonstrate our value, and also the key things to say so that we position ourselves as someone that they would want to sign a buyer broker agreement with, because if you're not getting people to the second date to go either, whether it's a buyer consultation, whether it's to show more homes, whether it's to meet with the lender, and formally securing them as a client, you're not going to convert at a high level. And, John and Blanca are consistently converting at a high level when they're meeting with buyers. A couple other people on our team as well, but I wanted to bring on John and Blanca and just to kind of run through what they're doing, because their process is, there's some things that are similar and there are also some things that are different. So I feel that we can learn from both of them and really just see what the best practices are. And so I have a little guide that I'm going to go through, and I'm going to kind of interview them and ask them a bunch of questions, and we're going to be able to hear some insight from John and Blanca. And feel free to also ask questions, guys. If you guys have any questions that come up or you want me to ask anything else, feel free to bring those up as well. Yeah. Let me pull up this guide. Jay, is there anything you want to?
I agree. I think after Enrique, asked the questions, interviews John and Blanca, I would love to hear some scenarios, right? Some scenarios that you guys are running into, because that's how we, that's the, like Enrique said, that's like the game film that we can really unpack and really go deep into those scenarios after he interviews them. Again, I know Enrique has a slide, so I'll let him kind of take it on from there. But again, I just want to make sure everyone understands, to me, it's a huge mindset when you're going into this, right? When you're going into meeting with new buyers, this is the first time you're meeting with them. But I'll let Enrique kind of jump in there, because I don't want to, he probably has that in there.
All right, we got it. So with the help of Claude, I love Claude. Just want to demonstrate how we're using Claude, right? I'm able to dump all my thoughts into Claude, like, hey, this is the training I want to do. This is what I want to cover. This is who I'm going to interview, and break this down on an actual training doc that we can show. So I actually put together a really cool, just kind of training guide that we can follow. So I just want to shout out Claude again. Those of you guys, if you're not using Claude or ChatGPT to make your work more efficient, you're missing out, guys. So as we know, guys, we framed, right, just starting why we're doing this training, right? So a buyer broker agreement, guys, it's the moment your commission really gets protected, right? If you're signing a broker agreement, especially with the way it is today, you're securing that client. And if you're able to get them to the finish line, you're already establishing what your commission is. So you got to learn how to do that at a high level if you want to protect your commission. And so we'll hear today how Blanca and John are doing it, the words that they use, the mindset behind them. So definitely take notes, guys, ask questions, and make this interactive. So let's start off, guys, just with the first part of it, guys, the Zillow buyer, right? Getting the touring agreement signed before the showing. I know this is a sticking point for some people. So I'm curious, we'll start off with Blanca. Walk us through, like, the moment a Zillow lead comes in. We don't have to go into like ALM or anything like that, but how are you framing the touring agreement part on the conversation with the Zillow buyer? When do you bring it up? How do you position it? I'd love to hear from Blanca, and then we'll hear from John.
Yeah. Perfect. So I'll give you guys a live scenario on a transaction I'm closing today that came in through Zillow about 21 days ago. Set the appointment, confirmed the location, home, introduced myself. And then when I was ending the call, I reminded them that Zillow is going to be sending them a touring agreement. This is a requirement for them to review and acknowledge before we tour the home. I said it should already be in your inbox. If you have any questions, let me know. So I set the touring agreement, called and confirmed the appointment. with them, and they still hadn't signed the touring agreement. So I remind them again, hey guys, I noticed you haven't signed the touring agreement. I just want to make sure it did get to your inbox. Yes, we're going to go ahead and acknowledge it. The day of the tour comes in the morning, and I'm getting ready to head out to Hollister. So I want to reconfirm because, you know, it's a travel time for us as well. And they still hadn't signed it. And I said, hey guys, I just want to confirm we're good to meet. I'm on my way. I'm leaving San Jose. And I just want to remind you the touring agreement is a requirement in order for us to tour the home. Yes, Blanca, we're on our way. We're going to acknowledge it. We'll see you there. And then I meet them and I get to the property and the touring agreement is still not signed. So I get there, I turn on the lights, open, you know, everything before they arrive. And then I lock the door and I have the key in my hand and I'm waiting for them outside of the house. And I do have my folder that I always bring with me just in case, you know, they can't access their email or they can't bring it up or whatever the case is. I have the touring agreement here with me. So I meet the client, remind them, you know, we're going to see the home. And I said, I noticed you guys didn't sign the touring agreement. Is there any questions that you have about it? And they said, no, actually, we just wanted to meet you first. I don't know if they thought I wasn't legit or something. I'm not sure. But they said, we wanted to meet you first and just connect with you. And I gave them a little bit of background information on me. Again, I do bring the bio with me as well. Be prepared because they don't know you. I said, hey, I brought this for you. I bring my bio. Here's some information on my company, myself. This is why we need the touring agreement. And I give them the verbiage why we need it. And it's something standard in our practice, in our policy. It's nothing new. This has been in effect since 2024, and it is a requirement in order for us to tour. And then I bring out the agreement, filled it out there, and they signed. And then we go into the home and start touring the home. So that's how the touring agreement got acknowledged there from the moment they came in from Zillow.
So it sounds like you're already mentioning it on the call. Obviously, you're letting them know this is a standard practice. This is required. And then with that one, since you're getting ready to drive to Hollister, you've reminded them several times, right? Like, hey, I'm not driving out there. I just want to make sure we understand this is what's going to happen. And then you're not letting them into the property until they sign the touring agreement.
And I did take a chance because they hadn't acknowledged it the morning of. And I said, hey, I'm just letting you know, I'm coming from San Jose. Are you guys going to be able to make it? And they're like, yes, we're coming from Salinas. So we're on our way. We're going to meet you there. I said, okay, perfect. And then I just thought maybe they just don't feel comfortable signing it, or I'm not sure. But they did tell me. I said, was there an issue with the agreement? Do you guys have any questions? They're like, we wanted to meet you first. So
got it. Okay, which is understandable, right? Before they sign a document or commit to something, they may want to meet you. Okay, excellent. John, let's go to John to talk to me about your process when it specifically with the Zillow. When are you mentioning the touring agreement, and how are you making sure that
I mention it usually right at the end of the first call with Zillow with the first contact, and I just make it real casual. You know, you don't want to make it sound like it's this huge contract that is going to bind you to me or anything. It's just like, look, the rules have changed. We need to have something in place. Zillow's going to send out this touring agreement. It's only for 7 days. So you're not, if you don't like me, you're not stuck with me forever. This just gets us to be able to get into the house. Take a look at it. If you have any questions, let me know. We can talk about it when we get there. Or I can answer them beforehand. And I had one person sign it at the house, and same thing. They just wanted to meet me first. And I had one person flat out refuse. They ended up saying, well, I actually have another agent. I'm like, well, then they're the one that you should be signing this with, and they're like, well, we'll just go to the open house. You can do that too, but I'm not, and I'm like, and I kind of ask, have you ever bought or sold before? And if they have, it's an easier conversation, because then I can go into, when you sold your last house, if it was prior to August of 24, your listing agent charged you 6%, split it with the other agent. We can't do that anymore. The buyer's responsible for the buyer agent, seller's responsible for the seller's agent, but almost every time we get the seller to pay anyway, it's just, they're not required to. It's just one more negotiating point we have to deal with. And they're usually okay with that.
So it sounds like you're just explaining the process, right? You're not making it a big deal. You're saying, hey guys, this is how it is. Let me just educate you on the rules, you know, and just making it not such a big deal. What about when someone pushes back, right? Like if someone says like, hey, I don't want to sign it, or they start acting a little funny, or they start going dark on you a little bit, not responding. How are you guys handling that part of it?
I just have, what's the issue? I mean, what questions do you have that I haven't answered to make you comfortable enough to sign it?
Okay,
You know,
just flat out asking.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to pay you 3%. Well, okay, you know, let's talk about that. You know, what do you want to pay me?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and 95% of the sales since this has happened have sellers are paying, you know, if not all of it, at least most of it. And if there is a little difference between what they're willing to pay and what we've agreed to, well, that's something you and I can discuss and figure out a way to work out as well.
Okay.
Same.
Just kind of keeping it open-ended. Blanca,
Yeah.
are you any difference with you,
Same.
Blanca?
No, the same. I think once you explain the process and what it's about, they feel relieved or they feel informed. One thing that I also remind them is, hey, you can cancel at any time. I want you to work with me because you're happy, you like my service, you're well informed. And that's the whole purpose of us engaging in a relationship, is to represent you and fully inform you, and you have a trusted real estate agent to work with. You can cancel at any time. There's no obligation.
Got
I
it.
think that some clients think that if they sign this and we spend time with them, because I did have someone say, well, if I cancel, what am I going to owe you? And I said, nothing. There's no charge for my time invested or anything like that. I'm working for you and we're establishing this relationship. Because I think sometimes they feel if I sign this, I'm going to owe a percentage or I'm going to owe them a fee. But once you explain the process, and like John said, don't make it seem like a big deal. It's part of the process. It's part of our industry. And it's to solidify that I'm going to be working 110% for you. This is what we need to have in place.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
I know confidence plays a big role, right? Like when it's one thing to explain it, but it's one thing to explain it and be confident, right? Because I think the clients are going to be sold off of your confidence. How do you guys remain so confident, right? And what advice can you give to agents who are maybe struggling a little bit with their confidence when they're explaining these things? Maybe John.
I've gotten to the point where, not the best way to say it, but I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
That is the best way to say it.
It's if you don't want to work with me, if something about me you don't like, well, I don't want to spend the next 2-3 months with you if you're going to be miserable and I'm going to be miserable. I want to work with people I get along with. I mean, luckily, I can adapt my personality to most other people. You know, if you're a little more intense, I can ramp it up a little bit and kind of meet your energy. But if you're a little more laid back, I'm fine with that too. So I'm never gonna either like overpower someone if I'm like really, you know, methed out or whatever. If someone's really mellow, but that wasn't the best thing to say.
No, I think that's John's superpower, guys, is that, again, he's obviously, John's been doing this for a while, and I don't want to speak for John, but I'm just looking at it from my lens, right? John is like, look, I know my stuff. I know real estate. I've been doing it for a while. If you choose me as your agent, you're going to have success. I'm going to get you the best deal. I'm going to look out for your best interest, right? So I think the question is, for John, when I look at it through my lens, John is confident because he's been through it and he knows the value he brings, right? And so, I mean, that to me is a superpower that John has. And for the agents that don't have the 20 plus years of experience, I guess the question is for this panel is, how do they gain that confidence? How do they get to that I don't give a shit type attitude? Right? Like, hey, listen, I'm going to give you so much value, Mr. Client. That's why you want to work with me. And if you choose not to, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Right. Versus the agents that some of our agents here are more like, oh, please, can you please work with me? There's a different presentation where John is saying it with his chest out. Yeah. He's like, look, guys, this is who I am. I'm John. I've been doing this is what I'm going to do for you. Right. So I think the question for the panel, Enrique, is going to be, how do we get them to John's confident level? right? I think, and I have an answer, but again, I would kind of throw that out to the team.
Yeah. Blanca, what's your,
I would say, one thing I say, I stole this from an agent in Phoenix. His name's Russell Shaw. He's been an agent since like 1978. He doesn't really do anything anymore. He just runs his team, and he shares a lot of knowledge in our Facebook groups. And his tagline that he's used as long as I can remember is he just says, this is what I'm going to do. If I'm going to sell your house, I'm going to do this, blah, blah, blah. He goes, and if you're not happy, fire me. But he's like, I'm not bragging, I'm applying for a job. And that slipped out once because we always make fun of that because he has a very distinct voice. But I was talking to someone and, I've been doing this for 20 something years. Yeah, I'm relatively new here, but I've sold over 700 homes, and it's a lot. And they kind of look at you. I go, look, I'm not trying to brag. I'm applying for a job. I want to be your realtor. And that kind of lets them know, like, I'm just a regular guy. But I think for the less experienced agents here, if you don't have the experience, you lean on the team. You get your confidence from everyone else. It's like, it's not, yeah, I've been doing this for 2 months and no, I don't have a ton of experience, but this is who I work with. These guys have sold thousands of homes over the past 20 years for hundreds of millions of dollars. The reason I joined this team is because we are a team, and you're not just going to be dealing with me. Yes, I'm your lead, I'm your main point of contact, I'm your agent, but I have all this experience behind me, and anything I don't know, I'll find out within 30 minutes from one of these guys.
Love it. Good stuff. Good stuff. Blanca, what's your take? How do you remain so confident?
Yeah, for me, it's more like John said, I think we do get to that level where it's like, do you want to work with me or not? You don't have that scare anymore or that nervousness. But for the Zillow leads, I do remind them, by the way, the reason you came into my portal is because I'm a preferred agent through Zillow. Let me explain what that means. So for the new agents that don't have experience, you do, because now you're meeting the Zillow lead, and guess what? You're the preferred agent for that area. What that means is I've helped a buyer sell or buy in this neighborhood. I'm very familiar with this area, and just hear them out. I think once you connect there and the client realizes that you're paying attention to their needs, their wants, you're not just product pushing. I've always learned early on in my career, and I think that's what's helped me a lot. I'm never convincing anybody to buy or sell. I'm assisting them in the process and giving them all the knowledge so they make that right decision. So I come from a place where I'm listening to them, I'm giving them advice, I'm showing my value, my knowledge. I already have an idea of the neighborhood on things they can't find online. I always make sure to have that information as well. So for new agents that are coming to these areas that maybe you don't know about, there's no excuses, because I have ChatGPT, I have Claude now, I use them simultaneously daily. And it helps me a lot on some areas. I'm a native, born and raised in San Jose. I'm very familiar with all of the Bay Area cities, but sometimes there's somewhere where I really don't have a lot of knowledge about. And guess what? That's my key, or that's my secret weapon, where it gives me a little bit of talking points or information that maybe they don't know about it as well.
Yeah, love it. Yeah. Love it. I think the other thing I would add, guys, is, and to reiterate, is if you don't have as much experience as these two here, you have to lean on the team, right? And get that verbiage down. Hey, guys, the reason why I'm on this team, or the reason we got connected, was because Zillow chose us as a preferred agent. The reason they chose us is based off our track record, based off how long our team's been in the Bay Area, how many sales we've done. We have over 750 5-star reviews online. Those are all important things, important words to drop, on those conversations, and be able to say that confidently, right? Because you guys can talk about the team confidently, right? Even if you don't have a lot of sales, it's not that hard to talk about the team confidently, right? And so I think just having that in your tool belt, and being able to bring that out and rehearse it and say it is going to give you that competitive edge. If you don't have you particularly don't have that much experience, right? Okay, let's move
Really
forward.
quick, really quick. I just want to recap, Enrique, because I know we're going to move on from Zillow, but I want people to really understand the way they're ending the phone call with Zillow after the ALM. They're saying, hey, by the way, Zillow's going to send you a touring agreement. Please feel free to acknowledge it. If you have any questions when we get to the property, we can go in and go over it. I want people to understand that's the line you have to put that into your own words when you're ending that call and make it sound like no big deal. And then when they do get there, you're well prepared, like Blanca just did, had her folder ready, had the explanation ready. And so you can go ahead and provide that information if needed. So I just want to make sure we take away from this training, this portion, guys, something tangible that you need to be able to utilize immediately when you're accepting these calls.
Yeah. The other thing too, before we move forward, is both of these, have said this, or, basically shared this. They're not attached to the outcome, right? They want the client. They want to help the client, but they're okay if they're not the right fit for that client, right? And I think that's something that's also important, right? We're not desperate to get clients, right? We want to earn the client. We want to show our value. We want to have that client hire us. But if that client's not the right fit, or I'm not the right fit for them, we know there's more opportunity coming, right? Do you guys both agree with that? Like that kind
Absolutely.
of abundance mindset?
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to have a sales manager that would say, some will, some won't. Who cares? Who's next?
Yeah.
Some will
Move on.
want to work with you. Some won't. Who cares? Who's next?
Yeah.
Move on.
And it's hard to do when you're new because, every deal feels like you got to hold on to it and you got to get it because you don't have a big pipeline. And, it's hard. We've all gone through it. I went through it last year, starting here brand new. I mean, yeah, I have a lot of experience, but I didn't have a whole lot of activity going on. So when you get a lead, you really want to hold on to it, but they can sense that. They can sense, not, I don't want to say desperation. I hear people call it commission breath. When you're nervous, you're trying to lock everything down. It's like, oh, you got a little commission breath, because you need something to close. But if you have more of an abundant mindset, that will come across. Like, look, I have a lot of business. I'm very busy. I'd love to work with you, and you should feel kind of lucky to work with me because I do have X amount of people I'm working with, and there's only so many hours in the day that I can work with people. And you don't say that, but you just kind of have that air about you that makes them want to be with you.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
I actually have said that to a client. I've said, hey, when we meet, I also want to make sure you're the right fit for me.
Mm-hmm. I've done that.
I like to work with more than a handful of clients because it does take a lot of time and I dedicate myself 100% to my clients. So I also want to make sure you're the right fit for me when we meet.
Yeah.
I'm already kind of presetting the tone when we meet on our Zoom because we're ending that meeting too with the next step, the next appointment.
It's a little bit of a takeaway. It's like, you're going to be lucky to work with me if I let you. And then it kind of makes them want it a little bit more.
Yeah.
There you go. I like that. I like that. Okay, let's transition now, right? We pitched the commission, the touring agreement. We got it signed. We get to the property. We show the home, right? We're not going to go into showing homes right now. But how do we now transition to the second date, right? Is there anything you guys do particularly? Is there certain verbiage you say to kind of now segue into what's next? Let's start off with Blanca. Go ahead. Go first.
Yeah. So at the end of the tour, usually what I'll do is ask them their feedback. What did they think about the home? Is this the only area they're focusing in? Just building some more rapport. And then I'm suggesting the buyer consultation because most of them are first-time home buyers. And I usually the verbiage I say is, hey, by the way, I'm going to recommend that we meet on a Zoom consultation. It's a free consultation to fully inform you of the home buying process. And my goal is to fully understand what you're looking for so that I can make that transition as smooth as possible and find your home. What day is good for you? I'm trying to lock in the next appointment, the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're just going for it, right? You're just recapping, just going for it, and you're making a recommendation, right?
Yes. And I always throw in that word free consultation because they feel they're getting something with no obligation. And I tell them, I promise it's going to be super informational. And the goal for me is to learn more about what your needs are, what's important for you, and what timeline you have. And I can also give you a market data, what the market is looking like.
Yeah.
And then the
Awesome,
conversation just kind of goes into, are they pre-qualified? Are they not pre-qualified? They're just starting. And then that ties in with our tools and our tool belt. By the way, I have a great lender, Jason Palomino, Alliance Lending. He's a mortgage broker, etc. We're punching in our tools. Zillow Lending. Zillow Lending also has a great program, you know, for loans. We have a couple of options for you. Just letting them know I'm the one-stop shop. They're not going to be going to different people for different things. I'm going to take care of all of the needs from A to Z.
got it.
Mhm.
You get people that push back, like you offer the consultation and like, oh, I'll get back to you, or I got to think about it. How do you handle something like that?
Yeah, usually when they push back a little bit, I'll just ask if timing is an issue. Hey, is it timing? I know schedules get busy. I work weekends. I work evenings. I make it as easy as possible for them not to say no. Or do you need to discuss it with somebody else? Are you buying by yourself? Are you buying with somebody else? Totally understand. That makes sense. I'm trying to dig in why they're wanting to push back.
Got it. Okay. So asking the questions, you're not afraid to probe a little bit and ask the questions and try to go after that appointment.
Yeah. And then just remind them it's going to be a quick 30-minute Zoom, but I promise it's going to be super informational.
There you go.
No, thank you, Blanca. That's huge, guys. That is key right there. That probing is key. It's the same concept when you call someone and they say they're not interested and you say, oh, okay, and you hang up. No, Blanca's peeling that onion back, asking questions, setting scenarios. Oh, do you have to talk to someone else? Oh, is it timing? Right? She's posting scenarios and asking these questions so that they have to open up, and then she finds an opening to provide value. That is key right there. I love that. Thank you, Blanca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
John, talk to me about your
I
what's your
usually,
transition?
go ahead, Blanca. Sorry, finish.
Sorry, really quick, guys. One thing that I forgot to mention is at the end of the Zillow call, I also remind them that I'm going to send them all of my contact information via text. And I send the business card, but on there it has our link and our reviews. And I tell them, please get familiar with my company and myself and see what my clients are saying about me. So that's when we set the appointment. So they're already getting information on their phone on our reviews and who we are. I always do that. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention it, but it's important for you at the end of the call, send them a text with your picture, your information, and our Zillow, our PRG page or Zillow reviews page.
Like that. Now you're just not some random person from the phone. Now it puts the face, right? Face to the name.
Yeah. Sorry.
John, walk me through your process. How do you segue from the showing?
So usually we walk outside and my first thing I'll say is, what are your initial thoughts of this place? Just to get some feedback, not do you want to buy it? You know, just what do you think? You know, and they you know, whatever they tell me, that'll segue into what I'm going to do next. I'm like, okay, you didn't like it. Okay. And let's, you know, we'll get a search set up and start doing a few things. And then I go into the buyer consult. It's, you know, something I offer to all my clients is a free buyer consultation. There's no obligation. It doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't mean you have to work with me. But you guys are first-time home buyers, and I think it's real beneficial, especially for first-time home buyers. We go through the entire process from A to Z, just from finding the homes online to getting closed. Worst case scenario is you spend a half hour with me, decide you don't want to work with me, but you have a ton of great information that'll help you moving forward. And you know, the only pushback is when can we, you know, is trying to set up a time, and I usually follow up with, I can, you know, it's a Zoom. You can either come into the office, we can do it online, we can do it at night when you're home, you know, after the kids are asleep, after dinner, you know, pretty much whenever. And it seems to work well.
Yeah. Okay. If they're pushing back at all, you know, is there anything you go into or any reassurance you give them?
You know, I reemphasize the fact that none of this obligates them to me. You know, yeah. I want you to choose to work with me. I'm not trying to force you into it. You know, back to that, I don't care. You know, confidence thing. You know, the only pushback is, you know, how do you get, you know, a lot of the pushback is how do you get paid? Because there is stuff in the news about, you know, you now have to pay your broker, and people get like bits and pieces of information, which is more dangerous than not knowing anything, having limited information, so if they push on that before the call, I'll just give them a quick little, hey, yeah, you're responsible, kind of like we do at the end of the call. Yeah, you are technically responsible, but we are very successful in getting the sellers to pay for it. And I say I've never lost a deal with a client over commission.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth it. My goal, then I go into I want you to be happy, because ultimately I want you to refer your friends and family to me. I want you to be happy and impressed with the service that we provide, where you tell people about us.
Yeah. So you're positioning the future relationship already, like, hey, I'm not just here for this. I'm here to serve you going forward. I'm here to serve your friends and family. And I want to make sure I do a good job with you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Let's segue. Okay. So we did that. We segue. Now they show up to the buyer consultation, right? Walk me through just a high level of how you guys either run your buyer consultations. Is there a certain way you do it? We don't have to go into like the actual buyer consultation, but just the framework, right? Is there a certain way you start the conversation? Are you just going page by page off the PRG buyer broker? How do you do it? And then how do you bring up the commission, in that process as well? Let's start off with John.
Each one's a little bit different, and it really depends on how the first showing went. Because sometimes they'll ask me questions that we cover in the buyer presentation. And if they ask me something about that, I'm going to answer it then. I'm not going to say, oh, let's just wait until we have the buyer consultation. This is something that's obviously important to you for you to bring it up. And it's something I would have covered, but I'll cover it now. And if they've, even before meeting me, say they've been looking for 2 months at just going to open houses, I don't have to talk about how we find homes. They've been looking for homes already. So a lot of that really depends on how the first showing went. But I when it's a Zoom call, I start at the top of our deck, the presentation deck. I kind of reemphasize me and our team. We've gone over that at the Zillow thing, but we have it in front of them, all our reviews and years in the business, how many homes we've sold and everything. And then the next big thing is that roadmap one. And depending on where we're at, just on what we've spoken to, I put the roadmap up and I'm like, look, these first three things we've already covered. We talked about this on the phone. We talked about this, you remember talking about that, and, kind of make sure that they agree that they understand that part of it. Then we hit the parts that, they don't know about, as far as, earnest money and just kind of like, the minutia, all the technical stuff that needs to get done to get their home closed and make sure all that works. And then when it comes, and commission's almost always at the last thing that we go over. And I'm like, and now this is the thing you guys probably really only care about is, what are you responsible for and how do I get paid? And then, I talk about how it used to be versus now. It used to be a listing agent would charge 6%, split it with the buyer's agent, and that would be it. Well, that changed, and this is how it works now, and kind of go over everything. And I'm like, does that make sense? Do you have any questions? And usually they're like, no, that's fine. I'm like, okay, well, after hearing all of this, do you want to work with me? And it's a hard question to ask sometimes, especially when you're newer, because none of us like rejection, but it makes it very clear and concise, not like, hey, great, thanks for doing it. I'll send this out, sign it if you want. It's like, no, do you want to work with me? And it's only for 3 months. We only do these agreements for 3 months at a time. You can cancel at any time. I'm not going to charge anything if we cancel. And after 3 months, if you decide I wasn't the right guy, you can change it then too. So yes, I'm asking you to commit to me, but we can break up whenever.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, if I am doing something wrong that's going to make you want to not work with me, let me know what it is. Let me know what I'm doing wrong that's either offending you or just doesn't sit right with you. And I can either explain why I'm doing it, or we can change, or I can refer you to another agent on my team that might be a better fit.
I like that. Yeah.
Just keep it in-house.
Yeah, and still with the attitude of like, hey, I'm here to earn your business. but I'm not desperate. It has to be we have to both be on the same page that we're good fits for each other, right? And so are you flat out say the way you just explained, you're flat out asking, hey guys, after hearing all this, do you want to work with me? Or is that flat out lingo?
Yeah, that not 100% of the time, because sometimes, you know, when you're talking, things change. But no, that's my last question. I mean, do you want to work with me? And I'm like, yeah, we do. I'm like, great. I'll get the form sent over, and you know, you just sign it. And we'll get the ball rolling. Find you a house.
Cool. All right, I like that. Blanca, how are you bringing up the commission in the consultation? And then is there any certain way you kind of run your consultation?
Yeah, very similar to what John is doing. I always have the company website up in our reviews. So I talk a little bit about PRG and EXP because they don't know who we are. They're not sure who EXP is and who PRG is. So I touch briefly on that, and then I move into the roadmap, and then I'm going through the roadmap and interacting with them as well. I usually congratulate them. I like it to be exciting and fun. So I tell them, hey guys, first of all, congratulations on taking the journey to home ownership. I know it's probably a little nerve-wracking for the unknown, but that's my job, is to fully inform you. So just acknowledging that it's a big step that they're taking on. And I'm going through the buyer presentation, not verbatim. I'm glancing at it and going through the sections of it, and letting them know what services they're going to get by working with me. And this is how I say it. I said, you're probably wondering, what is this real estate agent going to do for me? Why do I need a real estate agent? I said, there's a lot of things we do behind the scenes, and I just break it down like little bullet points. Market analysis, disclosures, reviewing inspections. I've been in the industry long enough where I know where I can spot important things and advise you about. So at this point, I'm just making them realize they want to work with me. This girl knows what she's talking about. She knows her stuff. She knows the market. She knows the inspections. We talk about escrow. Are you familiar with escrow? Do you know what escrow does? I touch on all of that, but I'm trying to keep it within 45 minutes max. So it's a little fast and it's brief, but I'm touching on all the important parts. I'm visualizing the home buying process in my head as I'm going through the roadmap, and I'm plugging in stuff that I know I'm encountering on a 30-day transaction. So that's kind of what I'm going through. That's the mentality I have in my head when I'm doing the buyer presentation. Then I end it with, in order for us to get started, let me talk about the commission. Are you familiar with commissions? Well, as of 2024, this is how commissions are handled. By the way, 99% of the time, I usually have it covered by the seller, along with the home warranty, which is a guarantee we offer. If they don't cover it, I'm covering it for you. On the commission, we'll discuss depending on the competitiveness of the offer, and I'll give them a little scenario, and it makes sense or they understand. And then I wrap it up and I say, I'm excited to get everything moving forward. In order for us to do that, you need to acknowledge the working relationship we'll have together. It's going to be for 90 days because it really just gives me the chance to show you what I can do for you, get to know you, identify a property. But then I tell them the same thing, but you can cancel at any time with no obligation. Nothing will be due to me. If you find that I'm not the right fit, it wasn't what you expected, you want to take a pause, something changes, just let me know and let me rectify it and make things better. And if not, we go part ways and no hard feelings. And that's kind of how I wrap that up towards the end, and just let them make it seem not a big deal.
Okay. So are you guys seeing that they sign right there on the spot? Are you usually sending them out a DocuSign and waiting for that to come back? Like, what's your guys' process for actually getting it signed when you're doing like an online consultation? John, let's start with you.
I send it out after. I'll get the email address and I'll send it out after. Sometimes it takes a few days, or we'll set up the next tour and I'll make sure it's signed before we get on the next tour. I mean, once I get a verbal commitment from them, I could probably be a little bit better about jumping on it and getting it over to them, but that's my own issue. Yeah.
But you're already starting to work for them, right? You're already setting up like when we're going to tour homes or what's happening next, right? Which I think is important.
I never used buyer brokers in Arizona. I mean, it wasn't required, and no one in Arizona uses them. And if they do, they don't enforce them. I don't know how many, well, he signed it by a broker, he bought it with someone else. Should I go after the commission? Well, then why'd you have him sign it if you're not going to enforce it?
Yeah.
So and if people have been looking in the past before the law changed, I'm like, you were probably talking to 5 or 6 different agents and maybe seeing homes with different agents. You can't do that anymore unless you have a non-exclusive buyer broker, but I don't talk about those. You need to sign with someone now. I go, that commits you to them, but that also commits us to you. If I know you're talking to 7 different agents and you're just going to pick one to ever send you that one right listing, well, I'm going to focus. I'm going to do my best for you. But if a client that has signed something with me and is committed to me, they're going to get priority over someone that doesn't want to sign with me. I will help you. I'll get you information, but you will have to take a back seat to people that are 100% committed to me because I'm 100% committed to them. And I'll be 100% committed to you.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. Blanca, what about you? How are you getting them actually signed?
Yeah, so same thing. I'm wrapping up the Zoom conversation, and I'm letting them know that I'm going to be emailing them the buyer consultation, the broker buyer agreement for their review, but I'm also letting them know that it's already going to be in their inbox signed by me, ready to move forward. If they have any questions, just to let me know once they review it. And then I send it to them at the end of our Zoom. I send them the email, and then I send the DocuSign signed by me and already pre-filled in. So nothing is blank. The blank one they receive is the one I send to them just to review along with the buyer broker agreement. But then the one they receive in DocuSign is already completed by me with everything filled in.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Same process. Send them out for DocuSign, get the signature.
Right.
Now, here's the big question. I know, it's probably on people's mind. What happens when they push back on the commission? Obviously, commissions are negotiable, but you guys tend to get higher commissions than everybody else I see on the team. And so how are you guys handling those conversations when someone says, oh, well, that sounds pretty high, or so-and-so said he'll do it for less? How are you guys handling that conversation, and how are you holding your ground? Are you guys budging? Are you guys negotiating? How are you positioning that? Maybe I'll start with Blanca. You could take that first.
Yeah. I've gotten pushback on the commission, and I've gotten the feedback where this other brokerage charges me X. And the way I handle that rebuttal is I can't speak for other brokerages. I don't know what they offer. I don't know what services they're providing. I could speak for myself and my brokerage. Everything I've explained is what you're going to be receiving. And I'm going to be negotiating that from the seller. I've been in the business, Enrique, for 20 years, and I've been able to negotiate the seller covering my commission. If there's a little difference or a discrepancy, we'll talk about it and we'll review it together. And I'm not going to lose the sale over a commission, but you're going to be able to experience that I'm going to be fighting for your best interest and making sure you're fully informed. And this is our commission, 3%. Are you ready to move forward? Yeah. When they say this other brokerage is, I said, that's how I handle that. I don't know what their services are. I don't know what they're providing. I'm just speaking for myself, and this is what you're going to get by working with me. And this is our commission.
Yeah. Okay. So just holding your stance, like, hey, this is what I charge. I can't speak for somebody else.
And I've had times where it's a competitive situation and the seller has decreased our commission, but our client covered the difference for the 3%, whether it was 0.5% or a full percent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. John, how about you? Have you gotten any pushback? How are you handling that conversation?
Oh yeah, it really depends on how the pushback comes. If someone's like, so-and-so will do it for, 2% on the buy side. And I'll ask, so did they offer 2% or did you ask for a discount and they just said yes? And if they say, well, yeah, I asked him for a discount, he said no problem. I'm like, okay, well, how hard is he negotiating for himself? Doesn't seem very hard. How hard is he going to negotiate when it's your money? I mean, he's not fighting for what he says he's worth. So either he doesn't believe he's worth the 3%, and if he's not, he should. How good of a job is he going to do for you? I'm like, I don't know this agent. I don't know if he's good or bad, but if he's willing to roll over, right away, what's going to happen when it gets time to negotiate, for real? we're not talking, 1%, we're not talking $10,000 or $20,000. Now we're talking $1 million home. You have someone negotiating that for you. Do you want someone that's going to be kind of an asshole? Or I sometimes say pit bull, I'm like, that, or if it's just more of a 3% of this, that's a lot of money, we're looking at a $2 million home, 3%, that's $60,000 you're getting. I'm like, well, if I was getting the $60,000 myself, I would charge less, but there's 5 or 6 different entities that are getting their cut before I see anything, and especially if it's a Zillow, I'll flat out tell them, we're a premier agent of Zillow, and for that privilege, we get to pay them 40% off the top. So that 60,000 is now, just before that, that's 24 off. That's, now we're down to 36,000. PRG gets a cut because, that's who I work for. EXP is our franchisee, that they get a little bit of a cut. I go, then I get to pay taxes. So it funnels all the way down. And, like I said, if I was getting the full 3%, I would charge 1.5 if I got the full amount, because I don't need to be greedy. But at the end of the day, I have a business to run, and I have a family to support, just like you do. And, you kind of reduce it to the ridiculousness, Yeah. Everyone gets their piece before I see anything. And if we end up not, we go a couple of months and we don't find something, you decide not to buy a house or whatever, I've worked for free for 3 months.
Yeah, I like that. Because now I think what we gotta remember is some people just want to feel like they're getting a deal, right? But they don't really think about what that really means and how the money flows down and all that stuff. They just want to feel like I'm negotiating, right? Sometimes it's just a personality thing. Sometimes it's a cultural thing. There's many reasons why people want to shop around, right? Sometimes they never pay full price for anything. But when you're now breaking it down and you're like, hey, we're not just talking about 0.5%. Let me show you what that actually means and how that pencils out. Then it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of a ridiculous ask, right?
Yeah.
And then I just learned something from you. I liked it. How did you arrive at that discounted commission? Did you ask them for that, or did they just offer that to you? That's a really good takeaway. I want everybody to take notes on that, right?
And if they start at 2%, then you follow up with, well, then they must not value their service, or they must not feel themselves that they're worth not all, but what most agents charge. So if they don't see the value in what they're bringing, how are they going to do a good job for you?
Yeah.
If you're just looking to save money, yeah, someone can always do it cheaper.
Yeah.
But that, sometimes you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you put that fear of doubt into them, right? Like, oh man.
Hell, you can go out and try to do it yourself. You can call the listing agent, you can get find forms online and write it yourself, but then, who's going to do inspections? Who's going to read the inspections? Who knows vendors to fix things? All the knowledge we bring, who's going to do that for you if you're doing it yourself? And if this guy's only charging 2%, maybe he doesn't have the broad knowledge base. Maybe he doesn't have the connections. I don't know everything, and I'll never pretend to, but my job is to at least know the people that knows the stuff that I don't know.
Yeah.
Guys, I think too, we're in an industry where people think we make easy money. We're sitting behind a desk and we're making all these commissions on homes we sell. But once you explain the process and all the behind the scenes things that we do, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know about that. It's like, just opening up their eyes on everything, why they need representation. Like John said, you could just go do it yourself. But now they know, hey, I need this person. I need this expert. I need them to explain all this stuff to me.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think what's a big takeaway here, guys, for anybody, is know how to explain the process of how everything works or what happens in a transaction, right? Because if you're not able to articulate the value that you bring or the different steps that are going to happen and the role that you're going to play in those steps, then people just are only looking at the commission number, right?
Yeah.
But when they see a commission number, but then they see all these freaking things you're going to do, then it's like, okay, I can see the justification, right? Sometimes we're having a battle where we're just battling numbers, but we're not supporting it with explanation of value, right? We're not showing our value proposition. You know, so when the value proposition is not explained, it always comes down to who's cheaper, right?
Another thing too that I find very helpful is sometimes calculating it in numbers, not percentage. Because sometimes when you break down 0.5% or 1%, it's not even a big deal. It could be $5,000, $7,000 difference that we're talking about. And in the long run, you're negotiating way more for them for their benefit other than that money where it's going to be worth it for them to cover.
Yeah, excellent. Jason, you had a question or a comment? You're muted.
Both what John and Blanca went over, I think, are awesome. I think one other thing that I would like to add is I like to tell the clients that they're in full control, right? When we write this offer, you know, we're going to go and ask for a 3% commission from the seller. And if they send back a counter, well, you're still in control, Mr. Buyer. We can still understand if it still makes financial sense for you to move forward. So you're always in control. Right. And that's something I like to leverage when I'm talking with our clients is that you're in control because now they feel empowered. And it's the truth.
Yeah.
If you write the commission, if you write it on there for 3% on $1 million and the seller comes back and says only 2.5, well, then you sit back with your client and you guys decide, is this something where we can have to increase the purchase price? Or do we have to ask the lender to give you more closing costs? Or do we walk away from this transaction? Or do we meet in the middle? Right. But
Right.
with the client, you're always in control.
Yeah.
Yeah. Superpower.
I say that a lot too. I got that from Jason. I'm like,
Yeah.
At
Same.
the end of the day, it's your decision. I can't make you sign the contract. I'm not the one writing the mortgage checks. You know, I work for you. It's not the other way around.
Yeah. Correct. I use that
Yeah.
too. And I did get it from Jason as well.
Yeah. Okay. We have just a handful of minutes left, guys, like 5 minutes left. I want to know from the audience, guys. I know a lot of you guys are tuning in. What questions do you have for Blanca or John? Or is there anything that really stood out to you that you want to acknowledge and that you can apply to your business? Let's get a few examples, guys. Raise your hand or unmute yourself. What questions do you have, or you have a scenario or how they would handle a certain situation? Now would be the time to ask. Shatal. Oh, unmute yourself, please.
Sorry. Thank you, John. Thank you, Blanca. That was really helpful. I'm very sorry I joined in the middle because I was at the event, but that was really good. And I just wanted to share what I had been through yesterday. I was on a call with a client for 40 minutes. I tried to give him all the buyer presentation and everything verbally, not with a presentation, but he was stuck at the commission. I kept on telling, you are in control and we will get there when we get there. At least let's just start how we are doing. But you know, the example he gave me, like, what if you put your commission as 1.5? That will sweeten my deal. And so that I'll get that house, the seller will be more inclined to sell that house. I just told him the same words what John and Blanca just mentioned. If I can't fight for my value, how do you expect me to fight for negotiating the right home to get to you? And that really, you know, opened up his eyes. So hopefully I'll get him as this, but I did mention we'll meet each other. If you see value in me, you can hire me. And if I like working with you, then I'll work with you. I try to show him my value as well.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, because for 40 minutes, he was just going on and on, trying to ask me to get my commission to 1.5. Like, that's not going to happen.
I would have hung
know.
up after 2 minutes.
Yeah, and then you got to decide, are you going to be wanting to show this client property for the next 2 to 3 months, right? And I think that's where it comes back to that mindset of abundance, where you know, John and Blanca did a great job of illustrating. And again, it's because they have these opportunities, but you come into it like, hey, this is my value, and this is, you know, we'll see if it's a win-win for both sides. So I love that. Good job, Shito. Good job.
Shito, I have a question for you, right? Because I maybe we'll spend the last minute. I just want to unpack what you said. So I'm curious, that client, did you meet with them already and show them a home?
No. I just saw that he was on Zillow looking at certain houses. So I called.
Okay.
I just grabbed the opportunity. I saw him online, so I called him right away. He was in my list anyways to be called. He was in my task list. But since he was looking at houses, I tried to unwrap like what he's looking for, 3-bed, 2-bath areas and all those things. Usually we try to talk to them more than like 5-10 minutes. But this guy kept on going for like 40 minutes. You will see that call was like for 40 minutes. And last 20 minutes, he was just trying to juggle between my commission to be 1.5.
Okay. Okay. So I think that's important context right there, right?
Yep.
This was a follow-up call. You're following
Yes.
up with the lead.
Yes.
Mhm.
And you're discussing commission on that call, right? What
Yep.
advice would you give her, Blanca or John, since it seems like she was just doing a follow-up call, not necessarily in person.
Yes, yes. I try to avoid the commission part. I kept on mentioning when we'll get to that part, we'll definitely do it. Let's first meet, or let me go through the buyer consultation so that you understand the whole buyer process, because he's a first time buyer. But he always kept on giving me an example. What if we write, like 50K lesser than the list price, and you write your commission as 1.5, then I'll get that home as a sweet deal. So at that point, then I had to explain him.
Shital, I have a question for you. Did you ask him what's important for you? What's
Yes.
important for you? Saving on the commission, obtaining the home at the best price with the best terms? You did.
Yes, I did. I told him commission is always negotiable, but first let's find out what is more important to you. What I came to know, for him, the commute is important part, because he needs to go to office every day. So he wanted something nearby, specific area codes. Then I had to explain him, like, we need to find something for you first, and we'll get to the commission part when usually it's the seller. I'm gonna work for you as free, only in case if the seller is not ready to do it. Everything is negotiable at that point. As John mentioned, when we get there, everything is negotiable, right?
Yeah.
So I tried doing that.
I think the advice I would give you, Shita, on that one is, I think you're fighting the wrong fight, right? If to have that battle just on the initial phone call,
Yep.
I would have said, hey, look at Mr. Customer. I don't even know if I'm a good fit for you. I would have did the takeaway, right? I don't know if I could even help you, if we're a good fit. Why don't we not even discuss commission? Why don't we just meet and see if we're a match, and let me understand what you're looking for, and I can go over the different commission options that we have. But I would have tried to deflect that to, hey, let's meet, because it's going to be really, really hard to have a commission conversation over just like an initial follow-up call, right?
Exactly.
It's a losing battle no matter what. There's no way to win that battle.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know your value yet, right? Because you guys haven't even met
Yes.
yet formally or anything like
Yes.
that. So just something to keep in mind. I
That's
know
true.
we're coming up on time, guys. Last question I have for you two. What's one tagline or quote, because you guys both have said a lot of cool stuff, that you think every agent needs to have in their toolbox? Like, what's one verbiage that you say, or a one-liner, or something that you use when you're discussing either commissions or the process? What's something that you think they need to take away?
Oh my God. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
I don't give a shit's the right answer.
Oh, well, it's not so much a tagline. I think for me, it's more be yourself. Be yourself. Don't overdo it. Don't overfluff stuff. John is super genuine, and people can sense that. I'm very transparent, very genuine as well. And I feel that that's when the client feels that there's a trust, that's it. You've got them in your pocket. When there's not a trust, or they sense some kind of hesitation or some kind of fakeness, or this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, that's tough to overcome. So just be yourself, be genuine. Don't overfluff stuff that you don't know, and be prepared. Do not show up on the fly and just say, I'm here to open the door. Have value and come with value.
I like that. That.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, I agree. You have to be yourself. You don't want to sound like a realtor.
Yeah.
Or what you think a realtor should sound like, and I kind of picked up on that when Enrique was doing some social media training. He's like, your social media should be who you are. You don't want to come across, like that, and then they meet you in person and you're nothing like they find you online. You just need to be genuine, because most people can pick up BS.
Yeah. I like that. I love that. Great takeaway. Shital, last one, and we're wrapping up.
Yep. Last one from both of them. I learned today to let the buyer know, or the client know, that they are always in control. So that's my
They're driving the
takeaway.
bus.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, guys, there was so much value today. I want to thank you guys for your time. I know you guys are both extremely busy. We recorded this, so for the people who couldn't watch the whole thing, you will get the replay. And guys, John and Blanca are leaders on our team, along with the other few leaders that we have. If you guys need any help from them, I know their doors are always open for advice or to pick their brain. Or if you have any clients that you want to collaborate with and you want them to help you, navigate those deals, definitely reach out to them. But thank you guys so much for your time. I learned some stuff, and this was awesome, guys. Let's give it up for them. Round of applause. Let's go.
Thank you, Blanca. Thank you, John. Great job, guys. Awesome. Thank you, Enrique.
Anytime, guys.
Great
All
job,
right,
guys.
no problem.
Jason, give
See
me
you
a
guys
call.
later.
Thank you, guys.